Hello, I'm Harriet Yashek from FoodBev Media here at Expo West 2019 with Tyler Lorenzen, the president of Puris. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Thanks for having me on.
So could you tell me about the point of difference in your pea products? Because it seems that everyone is coming out with pea protein these days.
Yeah, I think for Puris it's purpose over product. So we have to think about why did we start all of this business to begin with, and how can we separate ourselves from others is really going back to the beginning and where it all started. And for us, it was about building a more sustainable food future. And how do you do that? So it's about building technology from the farmer all the way through the supply chain. We call it an end-to-end system. And what's cool about that is my dad started the business as a seed breeder. So we sell seed to farmers in the United States. And they grow it for us, and then we buy what they grow back. And what they grow is peas. And so we buy peas, and in the end, we take the peas and we make awesome tasting ingredients and pea protein, pea starches, and fibers. And then we build foods from a holistic perspective using the whole plant and reconstruct maybe baked goods, maybe RTDs, but ultimately great tasting plant-based foods where consumers don't have to eat healthy, where it's just foods that they want to eat that happen to taste amazing and be from plants.
You market your products as being non-GMO. What's your take on the recent USDA ruling on labeling?
That's a tremendous question. The recent ruling is interesting. It's good that the government is making a stance, but I think it fell short of what our expectations were. When you think of the why behind it, consumers want to know where their food comes from and what's in it, and they have the right to know. And the third-party organizations over the past 15 years or so have done a good job at really setting a standard to live by, where consumers trust that if a product is verified by the Non-GMO project, that you can trust it. And with the new Bioengineering Act, I think it brings more confusion than it does clarity. And the goal was to bring more clarity for the consumer, more trust to the brands and what's in the food, and obviously their right to know that if a product contains genetically modified ingredients or not. And I think the Bioengineer Act falls short. There's confusion on the name, confusion on the disclosure, and doesn't bring clarity, which was the ultimate purpose.
Can you tell me more about the difference then between non-GMO and bioengineered? What is the difference?
Yeah, so when you think of genetically modified or bioengineered or non-genetically modified, the real difference, as we like to describe it, is non-GMO is using two like species, so a pea and a pea, where GMO is using two unlike species to make a new species. And it's kind of changing a little bit with gene editing, as that is a new way of doing genetic modification through targeting certain genomes of a plant and changing it. But the former way of genetic modification really levered around using herbicides and pesticides resistant crops is using two unlike species to make a new one.
So moving towards the products that Puris has, you've gone beyond just pea protein, haven't you?
Absolutely. I think for us, it's about building a sustainable food future. So how do you do that? You can't just make pea protein that happens to be regenerative or sustainable. It's about building more than that and using the whole pea. So when we think about, yes, we love the adoption of pea protein. It's great, but it's about creating foods of the future through everything. And that starts with what is in a pea. Well, a pea contains starch, protein, and fiber. It's not just protein. So when we make protein, we make fiber. So how do we use that? How do we create products that have fiber in it? The cool part about pea protein and fiber, pea fiber, is the USDA and the FDA has declared that it's intrinsic and intact. So you can make dietary fiber claims with our pea fiber. On the pea starch side, there's a whole bunch of innovation we're doing here. We've featured products from RTDs, so using pea starch as more of like a hydrocolloid, or using pea starch to make a vegan gummy. And the cool part about pea starch is it's very clean in flavor, so you have a lot of flavor pop, and it happens to be a non-gelatin gummy, so it meets our vegan consumers' preferences. And then of course there's even more things to come. Like, what can we create out of pea starch that's been created out of other starches, from syrups to maltodextrins to other fibers, or how can we use the whole bit and reconstruct foods like a waffle or pancakes or even pasta, taking protein, starch, and fiber and recreating nutritious, wholesome foods from great tasting, clean ingredients.
So could you take me through some of the products you have here at Expo West?
Yeah, I think one of the places I'd like to start with is, everyone thinks of protein. They think, well, what do? Eat protein shakes every day? And yes, people do that, and that we like that. But there's also other things that we can do. So one of the products that we launched here at Expo West is a pea crisp. This is a 60% protein crisp. So we take a pea and we extrude it, and it makes a nice crunchy texture. So then you can add it to protein bars or cereals or even like a yogurt topper to add protein inclusion, but not through a powder source. So pea crisps are pretty cool. And then further in a different market segment is this plant-based meat. I mean, it is changing so fast and very cool. So what we did is we invented a texturized pea protein, which basically you take pea protein and other starches and flours and things, and then ultimately you make a meat-like texture once it's rehydrated. And then you can make nuggets or burgers or what have you to make the new meat that's non-animal. So plant-based meats, and that market is growing really fast on a great base. There's a lot of great companies leading the way there. Then, like we mentioned, a pea is protein, starch, and fiber. So our pea starch is something I'm very excited about. It's a high purity starch and very clean. One of our cool applications that we've invented is a vegan gummy. So no gelatin. It's actually pectin-free gummy that delivers on bite and flavor. There's a whole slew of other things you can use pea starch for, from baked goods to RTDs, really you name it, and we're learning a lot about it. It's pea starch in non-dairy applications like yogurt has really some of the most exciting future for us. And then, of course, on our pea protein, one of the misconceptions I think the industry has, and you said everyone has pea protein. Well, that may be true. There's a lot of people selling pea protein. There's not a lot of manufacturers. And what I think makes Puris different than everyone else is we don't just make one protein for every application. We think about what is the application, what's a food eater's expectation of that food, and how do we build a protein that meets on promise. So sometimes we develop proteins that are lower viscosity or higher viscosity or lower solubility or higher solubility depending on the application. So a great example is, think you have a 20-gram protein ready to drink beverage. You have 16 fluid ounces to work with, and you want to put 20 grams of protein in there. We've developed a protein that we've actually, proprietary protein that we've actually designed so it fits the right texture, viscosity to give you a protein shake that is on par with a dairy protein shake. That's the type of thing when we think about how do we create proteins, we have to meet the consumer where they're at, and they expect a dairy-like texture, a dairy-like mouthfeel. We have to design proteins that meet that expectation.
And earlier you talked about a holistic approach to pea protein. Which of these products combine pea protein and pea fiber, or fiber, starch, and protein? Yeah,
great question. So a lot of the products that we design do this. We have a whole group of fanatic food scientists that are just building products day after day after day. And one of the things I think puts us in a driver's seat on creating products is we work with them constantly. And if you start with clean ingredients, ultimately you can build cleaner foods that just happen to be from plants. And that's really, let's make the regenerative, sustainable choice the easy choice, and it starts with taste. But one of my favorite applications is our waffle. It's a gluten-free waffle, cookies, pancakes, all of the baked goods really, but we use pea protein to get 12 grams of protein per waffle. Then we use pea starch and pea fiber to give you a fiber claim as well. And the pea starch replaces the wheat flour, and ultimately you're building a waffle that's been reconstructed from originally peas. And it's a really cool thing. It's a beautiful product too, and it tastes like the real thing, so you can't beat that.
And the holistic aspect kind of aids in your sustainability claims, doesn't it? Yeah,
I think when it comes to sustainability, it's a big topic of discussion. And the difference between what I think discussion is good. At Puris, we think that there needs to be more doing. So sustainability is cool. Corporate sustainability goals are great. So who's doing something? And if we want to get to a place of sustaining, we need to restore or regenerate first. Because let's face it, we're not where we want to be. And all the studies show that we got to build soil health, reduce climate change to get back to a steady state that we can sustain. So when we think about Puris and what we're doing, like purpose and the why behind this all is how do we build a system where farmers can grow crops that give more than they take? So legumes, peas add nitrogen to the soil. So it reduces the need for chemical nitrogen that's needed to grow hemp, oats, corn, so on and so forth. So how do we reduce nitrogen? There's huge issues in the United States with nitrogen runoff going into waterways, ultimately ending in the Gulf of Mexico and creating algae blooms. These algae blooms are killing fish and changing the economies of the Gulf. What is it doing to lakes and streams across the Midwest? It's changing the pH balance, the amount of nitrogen, synthetic nitrogen that's going in. So how do we make a difference? We can grow crops and build soil health by using multi-crop systems where peas are a part, and it gets you off of the monoculture that people are so accustomed to, soybeans, corn. For us, tying that to buying what the farmers grow, so they don't have to wonder, hey, if I do the right thing this year, is someone going to buy it? If we can buy it every year, they'll keep growing year over year. And then from there, if we can make foods that consumers love, then they'll keep eating it and the demand will grow. And that's what building sustainable food future is all about, is making it an easy choice, and all of the impact just happens to make it a better world. And that's what my dad's preached to me since I can remember, and what we're trying to do at as large a scale as possible.
Tyler, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you too.